Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fanfiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
I'm just going to get to the point. You are clearly much closer to All Might than the rest of our class, Todoroki said, leaning against the wall of one of the hallways while they waited for scores to be tallied in the field. Midoriya gulped, gritting his teeth as the heterochromatic teen continued. If you're somehow related to the number one pro. Well, that's exactly why I chose you specifically. You made me break a promise I've held for a long time, just for a moment during the cavalry battle. A promise? Midoriya questioned, and the stoic teen before him nodded. A promise to never use my left side in battle. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Where two people are forced together only for their quirks and nothing more? The boy asked, and the Omnitrix bearer nodded, looking down as he did. The very concept made him sick. My parents were part of one. My father, Endeavor, is a bastard. Huh? When I was a child. Since I could remember, he's been training me to be the next pro, to surpass All Might. He wants me to be the next him, to conquer everyone no matter who gets hurt. Every day was at best a fight I could barely hold out in, at worst nothing but constant beatings. Midoriya felt his blood run cold at that. Somewhere in the back of his mind, the idea of introducing Endeavor to Goliath began to sound pretty enjoyable. That's horrible. You get used to it. The heterochromatic teen shrugged, and Midoriya hated how easily he seemed to just disregard it, as the boy reached up for his burned eye. You see this? This is a constant reminder every day of why I can't ever be like him. My mother. She began to suffer worse, mentally, as time went on. She couldn't even look me in the face. Eventually, just because I reminded her too much of my father, she ended up pouring a boiling kettle atop of me. Midoriya felt sick. I don't even know what she actually thought she would accomplish by doing so, just that she wanted so badly not to have to see my father she attacked me. Todoroki explained, finally standing up again and beginning to walk away. I plan to make it clear to the bastard once and for all today I will be a hero without using his damn fire quirk. I will reject him today, and if you're related to All Might, then you're my next step towards doing that. Todoroki had reached the end of the tunnel, walking out towards the stadium again. Midoriya had nothing to say, at least not right away, as he stared at his watch, just processing all he was told. Todoroki had almost left when he finally thought of something, turning on the spot and calling out to him. The boy stopped, turning back with a curious yet bored look. Todoroki. I won't pretend I've been through as much as you, or that I can really understand your situation fully. I can understand and appreciated your motivation though. I can't just stop because of it though. You remember what I told you all about the USJ? About JJ and Roller? What about them? Roller gave his life to save us. To save me. I can't ever not put my all into everything from now on, to do the absolute best I am able to do. I owe him that at the very least. And JJ, she's watching from somewhere. I know it, she's seeing all of this and she's lost everything. Midoriya said, looking down as he balled his fists tight. Her home, her family, her friends. She seems so happy sometimes, but if I catch her at the wrong moment, I can't stand the sadness I see in her eyes. So for her, I have to be as strong as I can be, to make sure she knows at least someone is there, who won't disappear on her. That's why I still will be coming at you with everything I have. The third stage of the festival is always one-on-one fights of some kind, so I'll see you there. Silence followed after that, as the ice teen took in what the greenette had said. Then he sighed, simply walking off, Midoriya soon following behind. Alright, sports fans. We are in the third stage of the tournament, so you know what that means. It's the 1v1 fights. President Mike announced excitedly, prompting cheers from the crowd louder than there had been throughout the entire day. Go on, Midnight, and take it away with the explanation. Thank you, Mike. The sultry woman said into her mic as the students crowded around her once more, watching a holographic screen flick to life behind her. This year we have decided to go for a very straightforward no-holds-barred fight. No implements, no other challenges, all they have to do is either knock out their opponent, make them unable to move, or throw them out the ring. As straightforward as can be. I have here with me a pile of numbers for all our competitors, so why don't you all come on up and see who you will be fighting? Excuse me. A voice called out, garnering everyone's attention. To the Greenette's surprise, it was Ojiro who had called out, tail drooping as he held up his hand. I want to withdraw. What? Hagakure exclaimed, jumping back in surprise. Dude, what are you doing? This is a huge opportunity you're throwing away. Kirishima pointed out, frowning. It wouldn't be right. I can't remember anything from the second round. It was like I wasn't even in control. I can't go forward like this in good conscience. The boy explained, tightening his fists. You guys can't change my mind on this, my pride won't let me go through. Nairenjiki Shota, from Class 1B. Another voice said, belonging to a somewhat short and rotund student with blue hair. I'd like to withdraw for the same reason. Muttering erupted amongst the students and spectators as Midnight debated what to do about this unexpected development. After a moment she grinned, adjusting her mask. All right then. We'll need a replacement for you both. This is an incredibly naive decision, my boys, it's hot. Midoriya decided he didn't even want to know what someone like Midnight was into as he deadpanned, everyone else somewhat surprised by her comment. After a couple of moments, two 1B students called Tetsutetsu and Shiozaki were picked. The people who passed the second round and the substitutes all lined up, Midoriya taking a spot near the back as they moved forward. Realizing he'd completely missed hearing the score to talk with Todoroki, who looked to see who was part of the group. Bakugo, Kirishima, Yamamo, Todoroki, Uraraka, Ada, Tokoyami, Ashido, Aoyama, Siro, Kaminari, and the two students that had been picked. There was also a girl with almost tentacle-like pink hair, kitted out in odd gear, and a boy with tired eyes and messy blue hair. Midoriya picked up his number and ended up with the number 8 on his slip, which he showed to Midnight. Once he got the thumbs up from her, when she wrote it down he walked off, one of the final few to have their number picked, and looked up to the projection showing who was fighting who. Izuku Midoriya vs Hitoshi Shinso. Shoto Todoroki vs Hanta Siro. Denki Kaminari vs Ibara Shiozaki. Mei Hatsum vs Tenya Ida. Yuga Aoyama vs Mina Ashido. Fumikage Tokoyami vs Momo Yayorozu. Ijiro Kirishima vs Tetsu. Achuko Uraraka vs Katsuki Bakugo. Midoriya frowned for 3 different reasons as he read that. The first was simply Uraraka's bad luck, the second was the fact that pretty much all his close friends from class were in the final round. As a friend he was happy for them, but also sad because it meant he definitely would end up fighting at least one of them. They all knew it was nothing personal, but it didn't mean he had to like it. Finally. Whose? Izuku Midoriya, right? From Class 1A? A voice asked, and Midoriya turned to see the blue-haired boy behind him, hands in his pockets. Ymmmpgh. Midoriya was suddenly cut off as a ball of fur forced its way into the boy's mouth, cutting him off. Behind him, he heard Ojiro. You can't talk to him. The blonde said, and who Midoriya presumed was Shinso grinned. Just wanna say, I think I dislike you the most of your entire class. The tired-eyed teen shrugged, before walking off. What the? Ojiro, what the heck? Midoriya asked when the boy's tail finally got out his mouth, turning to face the taller teen while massaging his throat. Sorry about that, but we need to talk about that guy. I think has a sort of brainwashing quirk. The boy explained, making Midoriya's eyes go wide. But aren't those? I know it's not exactly common, but come on, let's talk somewhere we won't be overheard. Yeah. Okay. It took 20 minutes for them to get around to finalizing the stage for the third round, in which time everyone tried to calm their nerves or come up with plans. In Midoriya's case, he'd spend the first 15 minutes just talking possibilities with Ojiro about Shinsu's quirk, and in the end, he had only one solid conclusion to work with. Do not talk. He repeated in his head like a mantra. He knew he had a habit of running his mouth when he got into his fight, just to focus on anything other than the impending threat of injury and or death, but that would not do him any favors this time. At the moment, he stood in the dimly lit hallway out into the stadium, watching as Midnight and Cementos set up the last free bits of equipment they needed to start. "Hey, there you are." A voice called, and Midoriya looked back, seeing All Might walking towards him in his skinny form. "Not had a chance to talk to you yet. You've been doing amazing so far. Nervous about what's coming next?" "Kind of. I'm facing someone I've never seen in combat before, or even know anything about," Midoriya said, scratching the back of his head. "Normally I know something I can use to pinpoint a good alien, but in this case all I can really use is don't pick Goliath so I can actually stay on the ring." Well, I suppose that would be kind of frustrating." The blonde nodded, placing a hand to his chin. "My advice would probably just be to see if you can't figure out any information before you transform by using one for all. Still, I don't know how effective that would actually be." "Thanks. Actually, that does give me an idea of my own," Midoriya said, pulling up the watch and going through the selections, stopping on his Splixen form. "If his quirk works the way I think it does. Oh, by the way, kid, your girlfriend told me tell you she and everyone else wishes you good luck," the lanky man said, laughing when the greenette went beet red. "Yaoyorozu isn't my girlfriend," he shouted, turning away and only getting more laughter from the man. "And yet you know exactly who I was talking about," All Might teased. For a brief moment, Midoriya wondered if any of his aliens could punch someone into the sun. "Alright, sports fans. It's time for our first match," Present Mike announced, and a hand landed on the greenette's shoulders. "Seriously, young Midoriya. Good luck, I know you'll do great," the man said, giving him a thumbs up and a light shove forward. Midoriya nodded as he hurried out onto the stage as people cheered. "From the General Studies Department, this kid has come out of nowhere. It's Hitoshi Shinsu," Present Mike introduced the blue-haired teen. "Okay, don't hesitate, don't respond. Just go alien straight away and go at it. And from the Hero Courses Class 1A, he's slimy, freaky, fast and strong. He's every shape and size. He's Izuku Midoriya." The two teens' eyes met, and Midoriya lifted his arm in preparation. Shinso cracked his neck. "I'll step in if things get out of hand," Cementos reassured the two from his seat. "Begin," Midnight commanded, and Midoriya immediately pressed in the watch. He disappeared in a bright green flash, before it dissipated and Dupel took his place. Cool trick. At least you worked hard to get this far," Shinso said, with a shrug before he glared at the alien. "Still, even you got lucky, getting a thing like that could let you in while people like me are thrown to the sidelines. Maybe you of all people can at least understand how gifted you are to possess powers like yours." Midoriya didn't say anything as he began running at the teen, grinning. Maybe this would be easier than he thought. But that idiot in your class definitely doesn't. A hero can't care what others think of them if they want to succeed, yet that monkey doesn't seem to understand that. Do they need teach you basic lessons like that in the hero course? Midoriya's grin immediately fell away as he stopped, taking that in. He started to glare himself as he gritted his teeth, balling his fists. "Come on, Izuku. Don't react. He's just trying to get a rise dash." "Didn't I see another one like you right now, by the way?" the blue-haired teen asked. "He saw. JJ? What exactly are you even going to do? She seemed pretty pathetic when I saw her." The second the words left his opponent's mouth, Midoriya felt a switch turn in his mind as his blood began to boil. Don't you ever talk about her that way, Dash. The world went hazy. There, it's over. I win. There, it's over, I win. Duple's arms dropped to his side, as mouth dropped open and he stood straight. The world went hazy and there was almost a sound similar to singing somewhere, encouraging him to listen, listen, listen. Turn around and walk out the ring for me. Yeah, that was a good idea. No. He began walking. He didn't want to do this. He was happy to obey. Stop. What on earth is happening? Whatever this alien is, it doesn't seem to be immune to whatever Shinsu can do. The judges weren't rational with the entrance exam. They favored flashy and destructive quirks. Shinsu's quirk is brainwashing. He can make anyone do what he says so long as they answer a question he asks. Still, the exam had robots, not people. Seeing as he also applied for general studies, he obviously knew he wouldn't be accepted. I can only presume his plan is to succeed here and make it into the hero course that way. He was getting closer to the edge. Was the singing getting louder? Was it a reward? I don't want this. Save me. So then, seeing as it might be the last we see, what was that alien Eraserhead? Duple, apparently. Another of the three I mentioned earlier. Midoriya possesses two forms capable of cloning. The other shares a unified personality, making a very coherent team. This one has multiple personalities. Undoubtedly Midoriya had planned to use that to advantage so that the brainwashing would be ineffective, but he ended up messing up. He would be able to take down Shinsu alone, but he'd have to overcome Shinsu's brainwashing to do that. Either way, this fight is about to be over. Ojiro, I'm sorry. I can't, JJ, Mom, His foot was over the edge. It was about to step down. His fist twitched. His body began to heat up. Red glowing lines started to form. Midoriya had almost left the room, when Ojiro got his attention again before he could leave. Hey Midoriya? What is it? He asked, raising a brow as the blonde walked over to him, before holding out a fist. I know this may sound kind of selfish, but I'll say it anyways. Beat this guy, for me and you. Midoriya stared a moment at the boy's fist as he grinned, before giving one of his own and fist bumping the taller teen. I promise. I can't lose. Any second now, his foot was about to hit the edge, then his body suddenly lurched as something shot out of him. The world lost its haze and he pulled his foot back, almost falling. He turned, and to his surprise he saw a certain black and yellow Splixen. Back off, Buster. She called at the teen in front of her, running forward without regard. Did I just summon Shimura by accident? What the? How did you do that? Shinso asked, eyebrows raised. Nana went to open her mouth as she ran at him, but Midoriya quickly dived atop her, placing a hand over her mouth. Don't answer him, he said quickly, pulling her up. He looked at her confused features with a slightly determined gaze. Okay, first off, sorry, I didn't mean to bring you back like this. Secondly, can you help me just get him out the ring? The girl nodded, and the two began running at the teen before them. The blue-haired boy's eyes widened and he rushed forward, trying to shove them both. Unfortunately for him, the two Splixen were agile and still had a lot of one for all going through them. Damn it! I can't lose. You got to run away from it all. The constant belittlement, being told you can never be a hero. Shinso shouted as the two kept pushing, Midoriya doing his best not to drop from his shouts or let anger get the better of him again. You got luckier than the rest of us. Do you even remember what his was like? Midoriya almost ended up answering that, but before his mouth could even open, Shimura pulled him back. Hitoshi Shinsu is out of bounds. Midoriya wins. Midnight announced, and the transformed teen looked down to see he'd managed to push the brainwasher out of bounds. I still remember. Midoriya said, looking up at the blue-haired teen. His tired eyes closed and he gritted his teeth, but Midoriya kept talking. You're right, I have been luckier, maybe than I had any right to be, but that doesn't mean you can't still be a hero. You got this far, right? I know that look in your eyes, I used to see it in myself and I still see it in myself every day. Beside him, he could practically feel Nana's beaming face. It's the drive to never give up, so. I'll see you in the hero course someday, I'm sure. The boy said, turning to walk away once he saw a soft smile on the general education student's face. He decided to leave him be as his friends called down to him, but not before one last thing. Oh, and Shinso? Yes? Be very glad I was this alien when you insulted JJ. He said, smiling, but his tone was deadly. The boy seemed to get the picture. What were you thinking? All Might shouted as he looked between the two Splixons, the green one rubbing the back of his neck nervously while the black one just explored. She was in a complete panic last time. I'm sorry, All Might. The boy apologized, looking away. I wasn't thinking, I literally barely could. Honestly, Toshi, give the kid a break. Shimura called from the back of the room as she hopped up on one of the beds to be eye level with him. I'm fine, aren't I? Not his fault, one for all kicked in to save him. Still. The blonde sighed, rubbing his face while Recovery Girl silently wished she had any context for how a dead woman had come back to life in a different form. She was a good healer, but not that good. Is this even allowed? It was supposed to be a one-on-one. Well, it is part of the boy's power, so regardless of whether he summoned a complete clone or another person, he would be fine. Recovery Girl pointed out, jotting down a few notes. I am sorry I brought you back like that. Midoriya said bashfully, looking up at the past holder. You should have had a proper plan returned, an actual dash. Kiddo, it's fine. Shimura cut off with a laugh as she hopped over to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Best part of being alive was using powers and helping others anyways, I prefer coming back like this. How much longer do we have? Not much, just a minute. Midoriya answered, hopping off his stool. And I should really make sure I find out who I'll be up against next, though I think I already know. Oh, well then I guess it's about time we fused back up. Shimura said, sounding almost sad as she turned to her old student. Well, Toshinori, it was great seeing you again. Don't go too hard on the kid for something that wasn't his fault, I hope you'll bring me out again soon. Yeah. Goodbye, Master. With that, the woman turned back as she began to glow, reaching out and fusing back into Izuku, before the boy turned back normal. He looked up to the blonde, still feeling guilty. Really, All Might, I'm sorry I put you through that. Forget it. I'm sorry I yelled, you were just doing what you had to win. Just, please try not to accidentally resurrect anyone else in your next fight. All Might said, pinching the bridge of his nose. Midoriya grinned a little. No promises. After that, the boy had hurried up to the stands, finding his classmates all sitting, staring down at the next fight about to start. So, how badly do you think this will end for Zero? Ashido asked, leaning over the safety rail, while Kota nervously kept his hands near her waist in case he needed to catch her. I want to believe in him, but dude's got no chance. Kaminari gave his own 2 cents, as Midoriya took a seat between Momo and Uraraka. You did great, Deku. The brunette said with a grin, while the creation girl just set a hand on his shoulders to encourage him. What do you think? Todoroki versus Zero? The brunette sighed as he looked down. Zero has a really great quirk, when applied right. It can do all sorts of cool stuff, but... Midnight called for them to start and their tape-creating classmate got a hold of the heterochromatic teen he was facing. Then Todoroki used his quirk. Ice beats tape. As he said that, most everyone else almost fell over as a gigantic iceberg formed, going over the edge of the ring. Holy shit! Mineta said quietly, getting immediately reprimanded by Ida for his language. Midoriya sighed as he looked down to the field, as Todoroki was announced the winner, Zero trapped inside the ice. As the heterochromatic thawed out his opponent, the Omnitrix bearer frowned. I know I could just use pyroform, but... He looks so sad. He leaned back in his chair, groaning. It could never be as simple as just winning a quick fight, could it? Midoriya had ended up tuning out a majority of the rest of the fights, only really focusing for his closer friends' matches. He didn't want to ignore the others, but he needed to come up with a way to fight Todoroki, and he'd ended up making a decision. He needed to get him to use his left side, to see it was okay to use his fire. To get him to give it his all. Unfortunately, this killed his original plan A, B and C in the water. As he watched Mina skate around Aoyama, he placed a finger to his chin. Pyroform and Chiller are completely immune to fire. Hell, Pyroform gets stronger with it, so no way Todoroki will use his fire against them. Crystallize would basically be us going at each other the exact same way. Chances are I'd win, but he wouldn't use fire on a material that can't melt Friday. Mina uppercut Aoyama, securing a victory as he fell backwards out the arena. Aoyama is out of bounds, Ashido wins. Cannon shot. Even if I could use a technicality to bounce off the stadium walls, that would be super risky. No way I can try that. Maybe. No, that's stupid. I'd probably shatter the ice instead of bouncing off. Next up. He'll give you all quite the shock. It's Wanna S Denki Kaminari versus the 1B assassin Ibara Shiozaki. Wrath and Brainiac would be really bad ideas. Even if Wrath could maybe fight, he would so not be the right transformation for this kind of thing. Brainiac might as well just be giving up. The 1B student paused the match a moment to berate Present Mike for her introduction, insisting she was nothing like a cold-hearted killer. After the commentator apologized, the battle commenced. Goliath can't fit on the stage and Colossus would be able to ignore the fire too easily. It's weird to even be trying to deliberately putting myself at a disadvantage. Kaminari started to spark as he tried to end the fight quickly, blasting the entire arena with electricity, only to be intercepted by Shiozaki's vine-like hair, which she used like a shield. Blink would probably struggle on the ice, and I don't want to just end the fight as soon as it starts. Damn it. I really am losing a lot of options here. After his attack, the electricity-producing teen had ended up stumbling dumbfounded, being picked up by vines and thrown out, making him the loser. Kaminari is out of bounds. Shiozaki advances to the next round. Aside from the fact I just used him, Duple would be a terrible idea here as well. I'd just be making it easier for Todoroki if anything. I have no idea how clones are counted when they're shoved out. Next up. She's Wanna S Mistress of Creation, Momo Yaoyorozu. Versus, also from 1A, the embodiment of darkness, Fumikage Tokoyami. That leaves 2. Reverb and Goop. The two stared each other down on the stadium, ready to fight. Midnight told them to start, and Dark Shadow shot out as Momo panicked, creating a shield to hold it off. Goop could melt through, I guess, and I have no idea how he reacts to fire. He would probably be good for forcing it out though. But no, I can't. Damn it. That leaves 1 then. Momo Yaoyorozu is out of bounds. Tokoyami wins. All his thoughts suddenly disappeared into nothing as he processed that, actually taking in the field. Momo's foot has slipped out the ring by the smallest amount, forced back by the shadow creature. Tokoyami didn't look back to see his opponent's face as he left, but Midoriya could. The shock, the crushing feeling of defeat. Even after he'd began to win so much, Omnitrix pulling him through, he could recognize it instantly. Then the girl, despite her best attempts to stay composed, had started sprinting near the end to get out of the crowd's sight, and Midoriya had leapt to his feet before he could be stopped. Midoriya? Someone questioned, not getting an answer as he hurried through the door and pelted himself down the stairs. He ran towards the area he'd seen her disappear off to and looked around. For a moment, he thought he had missed her, and then he heard a sob. He began to move towards it quietly. As it continued, breaking his heart. He walked up to one of the waiting rooms, pushing the door open gently and finding Momo with her head in her arms, body shuddering. "Ya Momo?" he asked quietly, frowning as he walked in. The girl looked up surprised, before flinching when she saw the greenette. Gently he knelt down beside her, placing a hand on her shoulders. "You okay?" No. Why? I'm not, but... Why? The girl choked on her words, unable to form any sentences as she kept changing her mind about what to say. Swallowing, she looked at him while wiping her eyes. Why does this hurt so much? I thought I was, be better than this. I couldn't even last more than a few seconds. I've lost, before, but... It was so fast. I thought I was good at making decisions, but I guess I'm not as smart as I thought. Midoriya frowned at that, not sure what to say as he rubbed her shoulders gently. He wouldn't just leave her alone though, so he had to think of something. Then he had an idea, as he pulled up the Omnitrix and scrolled through. I really hope this doesn't backfire. It's okay if you want to go watch the fights. I am not so pathetic as to be unable to see cry alone at least. Momo waved away, not looking at him. He gritted his teeth as he pressed in his watch. At the flash, she looked back and her teary eyes went wide. Let me tell you something, Momo Yaoyorozu, class vice president and smartest girl Wrath knows. You are the smartest girl Wrath knows. Wrath said, pointing at the girl, shaking his other fist. The creation girl just stared dumbfounded. You are also the least pathetic girl Wrath knows, and Wrath knows no pathetic girls in the first place. Wrath does not appreciate these lies about yourself. Midoriya. You are also the best strategist Wrath knows, have one of the best quirks Wrath knows, one of the greatest friends Wrath knows. You are the prettiest Wrath knows, and anyone would be lucky to know you like Wrath knows you, and Wrath is starting to think Wrath should shut up before Wrath admits something Wrath will regret. Silence rung out after that as the bipedal tiger scratched the back of his head, and the creation girl looked away with a small smile that slowly started to grow. He. Then she burst out into full-blown, genuine laughter, rocking back and forth as she did, unable to contain it. She held her stomach as she did, and to Midoriya it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. Wrath, however, wasn't done. Are you laughing at Wrath's compliments? Wrath does not appreciate being belittled like this. But Wrath will put up with it, for Yaoyorozu's sake. She continued laughing, actually hitting her fist off the table at one point and wiping her eyes, finally starting to calm down as she looked up with a real smile. There was a silence between them as their eyes met before she rushed forward, wrapping him in a surprisingly tight hug. Thank you, oh wow, you're soft. Soft? Wrath is not soft. Wrath is, however, the best earth on the planet hug. The bipedal tiger continued, wrapping his own arms around the girl while she quietly put in the input to turn him back to normal. As he did, having to look up at her now instead of down, she smiles happily at him. Better? Better. I really don't deserve to be friends with you? If we're talking deserving, I'm sure you've got it the wrong way around. The fact I even got to meet you is amazing in of itself. Midoriya laughed, letting go. Then the girl's grin turned teasing. So, what were you gonna regret admitting if Wrath kept talking? She asked, raising a brow. Gulping, the greenette swillered on his feet, grabbing her wrist to pull her along. Oh hey, I hear Kirishima's match starting, let's go it right away. Mishra can now at hall the support event if he doesn't need it, he doth the semephoros. The boy blurted out as fast as possible, not looking the girl in the eyes as they began to walk off so she couldn't see his face go red. Behind him, the girl felt a million times lighter. And not just because the boy had made her feel better, but for another reason related to him as well. Maybe I do have a shot after all. Midoriya and Momo weren't sure what to think as they watched Uraraka walk off towards the stage for her fight against Bakugo. The Omnitrix bearer and creation girl had initially gone to see Kirishima's match, but after seeing how drawn out it had become, as he was facing a steel version of himself, they had agreed to go give Uraraka some moral support and maybe even a strategy. Instead she had denied it, saying she wanted to do this by herself without relying on anyone. A noble goal to be sure, still it didn't make Midoriya any less nervous when President Mike had announced she and the blonde were to go toe-to-toe in the next few minutes, their red-headed friend's match ending in a tie. Along with his still slight worry for Yamamoto, who he couldn't be 100% sure wouldn't need another pep talk and wondering if Kirishima would maybe need a pick-me-up as well, one could forgive him for losing himself inside his brain as he and the raven-haired girl walked back to the stands. Well, most could. Unfortunately, he ran into the one person he could probably be sure definitely wouldn't. He let out a oomph as he fell back, looking up to see a muscular man covered in flames looking down at him. "Ah! Watch where you're going, you brat." Normally, he would apologize, but remembering what Todoroki had told him before, he chose to remain quiet as Momo helped him up, looking between the two with a look of concern. "Actually, maybe it's fortunate I ran into you. That watch of yours, it's capable of quite a few feats. One might even say they could be comparable to All Might's, in the right hands." The man started to drawl, a grin growing on his face. "Be sure to give it everything you have. I need my creation to see how foolish his rebellion is, if he's going to serve his purpose." "Your creation?" Yaoyorozu asked, brows furrowing as she processed that. "You don't mean Todoroki, right?" "What else would I be talking about, girl?" the man asked, as he began to stomp away and Midoriya gritted his teeth. "Don't react. Don't cause a scene. He has a duty to surpass All Might and he's being disgraceful about it. He has to learn to get over himself if he's going to fulfill my dream. He's your son. Not just some thing for your amusement," the creation girl said, face contorting in disgust at the man's attitude. "Not to mention the only disgrace here is you," Midoriya muttered quietly, looking at the ground. Maybe not his best idea, as a moment later the number 2 pro turned, stomping up to them both. "Excuse me?" the flame-coated man asked, balling his fists, and Yaoyorozu quickly put herself in front of the greenette, getting him to look up as she basically covered his body. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "Sir, I don't think people are allowed to be down here besides students. As a class representative, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the raven-haired teen said, keeping her voice level as she tried to defuse the situation. The man just growled. "A child will not tell me what to do," Endeavor said, flames seemingly starting to become more intense on him as his frustration grew. "Sir Dash. Brats like you should know to respect your betters." "Sir, we'll respect you as long as you respect our boundaries." Momo continued to try to reason with him, however it only served to infuriate the man more until finally he raised his hand into the air, bringing it down swiftly, and for a moment, the greenette could almost see Todoroki on the receiving end. The sound of a palm slapping against a face never came, however, as a green flash engulfed the halls. A moment later it dissipated and Chiller stood tall, holding the pro's fist in place as he covered his friend. Dead moth-like eyes, with a stare as cold as his own powers, met the flaming pro's own. The flame-coated hand started to die down as it was forced back, finding itself overpowered by the alien as his arms started to become coated with frost. Then, in a quiet, breathy voice, he spoke with a tone deadlier than he ever had before. "You know. I guess it wouldn't be wrong to say. All Might is your dream, Endeavor. We all know you want to be number 1, and he represents that," Chiller said, as the air turned cool, Endeavor flames unable to provide warmth to any of them no matter how hard he struggled. "Let me tell you something though, if you ever try to lay a hand on any of my friends again." He leaned in, body going intangible as he went straight through the man, watching as he fell to the floor. "I'll become your nightmare." "Izuku Midoriya," Momo muttered, backing up a little bit as she grimaced. "You're scaring me." Blinking, the alien silently tapped the Omnitrix symbol and turned back to normal with a frown, walking ahead. He wasn't worried about getting in trouble. If there was one thing he could be certain about when it came to the number 2 pro, it was that he was too prideful to admit to being brought to his knees by a teenager. "Good. Then he'll know I was being serious," was all Midoriya said as he walked away, the girl trailing behind confused over his change in attitude. "Come on, we should catch Uraraka's match while we still can. Uraraka lost her match. The two friends had managed to catch the end of the show, seeing the plan she had been working towards put into action as she rained debris on the stage, yet ultimately, she still had failed. Needless to say, Midoriya had found himself running back to the waiting rooms once again, starting to get a little frustrated. He couldn't seem to get 5 seconds to just sit down for a moment and think. To his surprise though, instead of finding another girl sobbing her eyes out he'd have to give a pep talk to, he instead found her doing surprisingly well as she wished him luck on his own upcoming match. He'd left her alone, getting the impression that even if she wasn't alright, she didn't want him to see her crying, so he decided to respect that, instead going to wait at the entrance to the stadium. On the stage, Kirishima and Tetsu were engaged in an arm wrestling match to decide who would win their tie. However, slowly but surely the Greenette's friend started to gain more ground over the steel-coated 1B member, eventually smashing his fist into the table. Mike went nuts, as he had a habit to do while announcing Kirishima as the winner, and Midoriya smiled, happy for his friend. For all of a minute before he remembered what he was walking into, and he grimaced. He knew what he wanted to do in this fight, but that didn't mean he didn't still want to win. Unfortunately, Reverb would be at 2 distinct disadvantages. The first was that he was physically one of his least durable forms, able to be defeated relatively easily, and Todoroki would definitely be going all out with his ice. The second was that, to compensate for his lack of durability and need to keep a distance, he'd have to utilize his clones heavily, making it so much easier for Todoroki to wring him out if he got rid of a clone at the wrong moment. Next up. He's the coolest kid in 1A as well as the hottest, or so I've heard. It's Shoto Todoroki. No pressure, right? He thought, as he set his watch the selection he wanted and began walking out to the field. Todoroki glared as the two reached the top of the stairs. Also from 1A. It started when a certain device did what it did and stuck itself upon his wrist with secrets that it hid. It's Izuku Midoriya. The two students' eyes met, and Midoriya placed a finger over his watch. You know. I will acknowledge you are a serious threat if you make the right decisions. Todoroki said quietly. That's why. Begin. I'll end this quickly. The Ice Teen said, as a barrage as large as the iceberg that stopped Zero from before launched out at the Greenette. The flash of green dissipated right as the ice came upon him. It looked like it would be another quick match, but then. Pure sound filled the stadium, causing even those who weren't in the direct line of the sound waves to cup their ears as the ice shattered completely, leaving a towering wall of white short clones on one end of the stadium. They fused back into a team of 5, and Todoroki gritted his teeth. All right. Lutias do ths. All right. Lutias do ths. Each Reverb clone talked at the same time, running towards their opponent. Their gazes narrowed as the heterochromatic teen stomped their foot into the ground. The floor quickly became coated in ice as it traveled towards the group. Reacting quickly, 2 of the Reverb clones screamed at the floor, keeping it from progressing as it shattered, and the other 2 leapt atop them, screaming at Todoroki to stun him. It worked for a moment as the teen was shoved back by the force of the sound waves, arms trying to cover his ears. He slid towards the boundaries, but a wall of ice came up just in time to save him. The Prime Reverb's eyes narrowed. Thought so, he'll be using his ice as a barrier between him and the out of bounds. I doubt I can safely pull off another wall of sound attack again, so WOH. Before he could finish thinking, spikes of ice burst out the floor, some shattering by the force of the clones' screams but others getting through, knocking them all into the air. Not taking any risks, Midoriya quickly dissipated the other clones and flipped in the air, seeing the ground fast approaching. If he landed now, it would definitely be over. Without a second thought, he let out his most powerful scream, almost immediately rocketing back towards the arena. He turned and saw Todoroki staring at him, annoyed as he got closer, before throwing out a barrage of ice which the alien barely managed to flip over and slide down on his feet, screaming the teen back into a stunned state yet again. Yo, talk about an insane escape. I gotta say, I think this one might my favorite we've seen so far. You realize you're completely biased on that front? Maybe. Either way, let's hear it. Who is this one, Eraser? Reverb, I mentioned earlier he had two forms capable of cloning. As we've all seen, this is the other. He's much more coordinated as he shares a single consciousness, essentially, allowing for much easier teamwork between them. Interestingly, of all forms he possessed, this may well be one of the least durable, making it an interesting choice. Oh? And why is that? He possesses multiple aliens that are complete direct counters to all of Todoroki's abilities. Knowing him, he must be planning something. Either way, his other main attributes as we've seen is his sonic screams. They're about equivalent to your own, Mike, in terms of how loud they are, but the physical force can be much greater if he pushes himself. Todoroki growled, running forward despite the pain of the barrage of sound hitting him, and threw a punch forward, hitting Reverb in the stomach and throwing him back. Giving short bursts of sound, the alien quickly righted himself and looked up to see the heterochromatic teen shaking, ice covering parts of his body. This is my chance. You see and QEP at TH's. He said, duplicating into three and all of them jumping out the way of a set of spikes coming at them. You are hitting yo, you are limit to Todoroki. Is that so? The boy asked, standing tall and stomping the ground again, ice quickly spiking out at the three clones. They duplicated each into a group of 6 and decimated the ice. Damn it! We can complete LY counteract Yuri ice and rely. Reverb said calmly, as he dropped in front of the teen. A lull in the fight as the two knew they were hitting a standstill. UILL never win if you never give 100%. The ice teen's eyes narrowed as he realized what Midoriya was trying to get at, and he started to stomp forward. Don't you dare, Midoriya! You know W it is TRUE. You can't be at me YTH or ICUGH. He didn't stop Todoroki's approach, trying to get his words out, but that let the teen get in close enough to kick the alien across the ring. As he continued running, the alien quickly looked up and screamed again, shattering some more ice coating the field and letting him quickly get away from the boundary. Did my faith or put you up to this? Todoroki demanded, as he ran to meet the alien again, movements becoming more and more stiff as his body was covered in frost. How much did he offer to pay you, you bastard? Nothing. This has nothing to do YTH you re-fat her to Todoroki. Reverb countered, rolling out the way of yet another barrage and letting a clone jump UT of him, recreating his sliding move from earlier as a distraction. TH is to do YTHU. Yuri losing because you refuse to use Yuri Fiery. And that won't change. The teen shouted, pissed off as his ice exploded, sending shrapnel that the alien barely avoided. His clone hit in the process. Todoroki moved faster than Midoriya expecting, taking his legs out from under him and quickly coating his body in ice, holding him down with a look of pure anger. I won't use his powers. I won't let him have the satisfaction. He was going to lose. His mind flashed to JJ for a moment, imagining her watching and the look of disappointment that would cross her face if he failed here. If he beat Shinso Furojiro, only to fail a moment later. All Might and his mom, doing everything they could to encourage him until now. Yaoyorozu, who had just suffered her own lose. He saw a roller, rolling over in his tomb at him failing. Finally, as the ice started to cover his face, he saw Todoroki in front of him, the pain hidden behind in the anger in those eyes. A switch flipped in his mind, he couldn't fail right now no matter what. It's no OT high S. It's your PWER. Not high is. It's not dash. It's yours. As his voice picked up, screaming that last line, he screamed as loud as he could, the vibration of his body from the backlash making the ice go brittle and fall apart while Todoroki was thrown through the air. Getting up, he brushed the last of the ice off and met his opponent head-on with a glare. Todoroki stood up, and their gazes locked, yet the heterochromatic teen's gaze seemed so far away. I am putting everything. We all are. So you shall do the same. Silence engulfed them a moment, and neither moved. For a moment, the alien boy couldn't help but wonder if he'd somehow gone too far, when finally Todoroki muttered a single phrase. Still want to be a hero. Then, in one amazing instant, a magnificent torrent of flames sprouted from the boy, making Midoriya have to shield his eyes a moment. Eh? What's this? Shoto Todoroki is using his flames. What an amazing display. So, that's what the problem child was doing. Yee is Shuto. Have you finally embraced your dash? Midoriya tuned out Endeavor's shout, as did Todoroki. The two One students' eyes met once more. Thank you, Midoriya. The Fire and Ice teen muttered, and Midoriya grinned for just a moment. But now, it's over. Ah, right, he wasn't going to be able to. His eyes widened as he looked around at the ice on the field, back to the fire and the new chunks of ice sprouting off his opponent. What to do, Roki? Don't! He ran forward, separating into as many clones as he possibly could to try to contain the backlash that was inevitably going to occur at this point. Todoroki likely hadn't realized because of the adrenaline, but his power was going to. Boom! He heard the noise before he saw the flash or felt the shockwave hit him. He did the first thing he could think of, dissipating all of his clones and screaming at the ground. The world flashed hundreds of times as he twirled far too fast through the air, debris flying all around him and spectators screaming in shock and fear. For just a moment he could have sworn he met eyes with Ashido as he was thrown away. Then, eventually the spinning stopped and he could see the endless blue expanse of the sky. Looking around, he realized that he'd managed to redirect his trajectory into the sky, but now he was plummeting back to the ground, picking up speed fast. It took a couple moments, but the stadium came back into view as he plummeted, and the voice of Present Mike filled his ears. Well, sports fans. Midoriya is absolutely nowhere to be seen and Todoroki is still barely in bounds, so dash. Wait, look there. Oh my god. In the sky, sports fans. People started to point as he finally passed the roof of the stadium and saw Todoroki looking up at him, dazed and shocked as he leaned against an ice wall protecting him. Beep. 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 Looking at the flashing Omnitrix symbol, he grimaced as he realized it was now or never. Splitting instantly into a group of 10, he let out one last scream that shattered the ice and sent Todoroki over the edge, falling down the steps before the alien collided hard with the concrete ground. Bwah! He retained conscious just barely long enough to feel the other reverbs merge back into him and feel his body return to normal. Shoto Todoroki is out of bounds. Midoriya wins. With that, his consciousness faded away. Midoriya groaned as he came to. His head ached and it hurt to open his eyes, but after a moment he managed to force them open and take in the room he was in. He was laid up on an infirmary bed, while recovery girl bustled about looking after the other patient, a groggy-looking Todoroki. The heterochromatic teen was the first to notice the Omnitrix bearer had awoken. Midoriya. HM? Oh, you're finally awake. The nurse said, relieved, turning and quickly hurrying over to him. How are you feeling, Sonnie? Like I took a Detroit smash to the face. He groaned, rubbing his forehead. What happened? I remember an explosion, but then. I apologize. Todoroki spoke up first, getting the greenette's attention. He seemed genuine as well, a nice surprise. I wasn't thinking straight. I used my quirk in an incredibly reckless and destructive way. Oh, right. Super cooled area, rapidly heated up. Midoriya muttered, suppressing a yawn. Both of you got injured because of it, however for different reasons. Mr. Todoroki has escaped mostly intact, though no doubt he'll have a few scars and burns that won't be healing anytime soon. The nurse explained, causing the greenette to grimace. As for you, you mostly were just thrown about by the explosion itself. Unfortunately, you somehow managed to get yourself an impressive amount of height, with no safe way to get down. Oh. Yes, you took quite the fall. Fortunately, it seems your alien form saved you once more. You only had a few cuts and bruises, easily healed up. Still, you'll probably be a little tired from everything. Recovery girl explained, as she took a few readings. Still, so long as you are healthy, you can return to the spectator's stand or remain here. It might be easier to rest here, but the choice is yours. He took a moment to contemplate that, but shook his head, moving to climb out of the bed. Should probably let everyone know I'm alright. Who won, by the way? I. You did, Midoriya. Todoroki said, looking up to him with conflicted eyes. Midoriya couldn't help but notice as he properly inspected his classmate, that there was a new cut below his right eye. Even with using my fireside, even with the unexpected explosion. You hit me with an attack as you were falling through the air and you won. Silence fell over the room for a moment, before Midoriya walked over to him and knelt down. Confused, Todoroki met his eye and Midoriya smiled despite himself, as he pointed to the new scar. Your eye. It was always a reminder, right? Yes, of my promise. I don't know what to do with that now. I can't. The fire and ice teen struggled to put his thoughts into words, and the Omnitrix bearer sighed. Use this one as a reminder as well. Your left eye is a reminder of what you will never become, not because you refuse your left side but because you will control it. He instructed calmly, surprising even himself with the confidence he spoke these instructions. And this new scar. Use it to remind you why you must get it under control. Your power doesn't define you, nor does your family. Midoriya finally stood, turning to leave, but before he did, he gave Todoroki one last kind smile. Take it from me, Todoroki, the only part of your life that defines you is yourself. He didn't stay to see if his words landed. Somehow, he just felt confident they would. Deku! Uraraka cried out happily as the boy returned to the stands, leaping at him and pulling him into a hug. Yaoyorozu wrapped her own arms around him a moment later, and everyone else gave him at least a thumbs up or a nod. Well, except Bakugo, of course. That was amazing. Are you okay? That fall. It looked like it would have hurt. Yamamo finished and the boy laughed, scratching the back of his head while they walked down to the seats. I'm fine, just a little groggy, he said with a shrug, sitting down and looking upon the next match. It was Ida versus a Class 1B girl, Shiozaki. Whoever won would be his next opponent. He placed a hand to his chin as he leaned forward slightly. If Shiozaki wins, I'll be at a disadvantage due to having no real knowledge of her quirk beyond it involved vines. I'll have to rely on pyroform and hope she had a weakness to fire. As he continued to think, he completely failed to notice Yaoyorozu had yet to actually remove her arm from around him. She seemed oblivious to it as well, until the snickering from some of their classmates alerted her and she quickly retracted the arm. Bakugo left, either for his next match or with disgust. Probably both. If Ida wins, I'm conflicted on what to do. I don't want to insult him by not going all out, but I still want it to be a fair competition. He's a strong fighter, but if I choose someone like Colossus, there's no way he'd be able to actually do any proper damage. The fight began, and almost as soon as it did, it was over. Shiozaki was simply unable to react in time to Ida's speed, getting behind her in just a few seconds and grabbing her by the shoulders. She was out the ring just a moment later. Tenya, Ida wins. Midoriya sighed with a grin, sitting back. He'd just have to cross that bridge when he got into the ring with him. So who's next? I think Kirishima and Bakugo. The raven-haired girl beside him said, with a furrowed brow. I don't really know how to call that fight. Well, it will probably come down to if Bakugo figures out Kirishima's weakness or not. The greenette commented with a frown. He would probably rather face his red-headed friend in the finals than the explosive blonde, but somehow he knew that wouldn't happen. I suppose so. His tall friend nodded, before leaning back with a frown. Then she noticed his concerned look and hesitantly she placed her hand on top of the greenettes that sat on his armrest. He looked over to her surprised but seemed to feel better at her smile, even if he did blush a little. They missed Jiru and Mina rolling their eyes above them. Not that Midoriya really would have cared, for once he felt calm. Boom! 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 The moment was ruined, however, when Bakugo let out a relentless assault on Kirishima. An assault that saw him declared the winner of the match. Midoriya's body stiffened just a little, and Yaoyorozu's grip got tighter. She didn't let go until it was time for the Greenette's own match. Unfortunately, there was only one match before that. And sadly, Tokoyami vs. Mina hadn't been a long fight. Alright, sports fans. He's the kid with engines in his legs and a passion that burns just as hot as those engines' flames. It's Wanna S. Ida Tenya. Midoriya took a steadying breath as he walked up the platform to the arena. Ida's face slowly coming up the other side as the flames of the arena danced. If he won this fight, then he'd either be up against Tokoyami or Bakugo. Shaking his head, he decided to put that thought aside for now. He could worry about his childhood friend later. For now, he had to focus on his real friend. I hope you'll do your best, Ida. And also from 1A, he may be quirkless but he's no ordinary kid. It's Izuku Midoriya. And I hope the same of you, though I have one request. Ida said, getting Midoriya's attention as he cycled through his forms. I understand if you won't listen to my request, but I would like to fight Blink if at all possible, it is only right. Midoriya smirked, setting the watch to set alien silhouette. The possibility of a trap went through his mind for a moment, but he decided he'd take the risk. Begin! A green flash immediately engulfed the Greenette, and when it dissipated, Blink stared down his friend. He grinned, talking in his raspy voice as his visor came down. May the best speedster win. Yes, of course. Whoosh! Recipro burst. To the spectators, the two became not more than blurs as they rushed one another, but with their own eyes trained to see such faster objects, and their reflexes honed by their powers, the two boys saw each other coming. Midoriya wasn't using his full speed, of course. The risk of flying right off the arena was far too high if he didn't stop. His reflexes were good, not perfect. The two met in the middle and the alien sidestepped, trying to use the teen's own previous move against him. Instead, however, the blue-haired teen seemed to anticipate this and planted one of his feet into the ground, lifting the other and using his flames to deliver a powerful roundhouse kick to Blink's head. The alien was thrown to the side, flying towards the arena boundary, but he managed to right himself just in time, immediately leaping back into action. Ida's flames started to flicker and the alien grinned. Ida couldn't keep such constant high-speed movement going like he could. Still, his taller friend wasn't done yet, capitalizing on every moment he could. The two rushed each other again, and this time the transformed teen wasted no time on fancy movements, aiming a claw right at Ida's stomach. Unfortunately, he made a miscalculation as Ida's arms reached farther than his own, and he was knocked down by a punch to a face, even if he did trip Ida up in the process. Yo, Eraserhead, you wanna share this one? Blink. If you ask me, he seems to be a favorite. His power is simple, he's fast. Faster than any pro hero currently on record, in fact, though utilizing that in this small area may be difficult. He isn't that bad in the physical strength department either. He's certainly not as strong as some others, but he does possess at least a little enhanced strength. Sounds super handy. Finally, Ida's flames died down and the teen's speed was cancelled. Midoriya grinned as he stood up, aiming for one last strike. He thought he had a chance if he ended it fast. Sorry, Ida, I dash. His thought was cut off as he came up on the blue-haired teen, only to have his legs swept out from under him and to go skidding across the arena. Sitting back up, having barely avoided going out, he looked to Ida in surprise. The blue-haired teen was grinning. And Midoriya understood, shaking his head in amusement. I get it now. I can only move so fast here, and it's just slow enough that Ida's enhanced reaction time. He can attack me. Smart idea. Shame it relies on a misinformed notion. I can attack from a distance. He lifted his visor for just a moment, so Ida could see his grin before he rushed to one of the corners and began circling his friend. Ida's head whipped around, trying to keep up, but with the teen's path in a circle he could get faster than before. Before he knew it, the blue and black blur started to rise into the air with the wind, creating a forceful tornado that the engine teen found himself stuck within. Try though he might, Ida's feet were quickly lifted off the ground and he was lifted into the air. Finally, Midoriya stopped, time almost seeming to slow as he watched Ida fall and he slid across the floor. Right at the last moment, he acted. Whoosh! His claws curled up, he hit the teen in the chest and the hit struck true, catching Ida off guard and throwing him to the edge of the ring. He slid back, and silence fell for a moment. Ida's head was over the boundary. Tenya Ida is out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya advances to the final round. Smiling softly, Blink tapped his Omnitrix symbol and in a flash, Midoriya returned. He ran over to Ida, offering him a hand. You okay? Physically, I'm fine. The tall teen groaned, accepting the helping hand up. His face wore a look of shame, however. I am ashamed that I couldn't win for my brother, however. Oh hey, come on. I'm sure it would be awesome if you won, but if he's your brother, then I'm sure he's still proud of you for getting this far. Midoriya laughed as the two made their way to the exits. Ida nodded, quietly. So, let me guess, didn't expect I could hit from a distance? Yes, I was under the impression you would have needed to attack me physically. I suppose I should have considered the possibility your speed would have generated wind. The engine teen nodded, when a set of footsteps got the two boys' attention. A moment later, Ectoplasm, one of their teachers, hurried around the corner. Sir? Are you all right? I'm fine. It's you I'm concerned about. Come with me, Mr. Ida. There was an incident in Hosu City. The teacher explained and the teen froze up for a moment. Excuse me, Midoriya. Ida said quietly, following the pro. As they left, Midoriya could only stand there confused. What was that about? Next up, sports fans, he's an explosive force to be reckoned with. It's Katsuki Bakugo from 1A. Midoriya blinked, looking back. Guess I might as well just wait here. No point going back up to the stands now. Also from 1A, striking from the shadows, shrouded in their darkness, it's Tokoyami Fumikage. The next few minutes were filled with bright lights and explosions as Midoriya tried his best to ignore them and think. I don't want to use goop, so. Who? Crystallize was effective, but he was able to pull me out. He knows my weakness. I doubt I can just rush him as Blink either. Ida already proved that won't be effective. Damn it, with his explosions he's way too powerful against most of my forms. Then it hit him. But what if I could turn his power into a disadvantage? I don't have to worry as much about property damage here. He looked down, pulling up his watch and cycling through his forms. Funnily enough, though he didn't know it, he would have been relying on the same alien regardless of who won the fight. Fumikage Tokoyami is defeated. Katsuki Bakugo advances to the final round. Midoriya sighed. Of course he did. Sir. We have an escapee from Corridor 3 approaching. Shit. Who is it? It appears to be a conductoid. Your orders, Magister? Same as ever. Capture, contain and punish. Midoriya sucked in a breath as he looked towards the stadium, ready to be called in any moment. There was a short break being given for the two finalists to catch their breath and to build excitement among the spectators. The greenette looked up to the one as stands, practically able to feel the worry radiating off his friends. He saw Uraraka leaning over the edge of the railing, and when she met his eyes, he just gave her a thumbs up. The brunette smiled, giving her own before the greenette turned back to the ring. In the commentary booth, present Mike and Aizawa were discussing the upcoming match excitedly. Well, one of them was. So, since he's gotten to the end and we already know the gist of Bakugo's power, what alien do you think's coming up next, Eraserhead? I mean, we already seen a fair few. Any new ones left? There are a few. Some even I've yet to see. Still, from files and documents, as well as a basic understanding of how he thinks, I can make a few educated guesses. Aizawa replied, bored as ever. A shuffling sound could be heard, indicating the scruffy man was moving about some papers likely containing information on the fighters. Midoriya knew this was a scouting opportunity and did his best to showcase his multiple forms, however now we are in the final round that isn't a likely factor. Especially not since the two finalists seem to have a complicated relationship. Oh ho! So it's a fated battle, destined to be? Present Mike asked, and he got a groan in response. Believe whatever nonsense you wish. Both of them are merely powerful and competent fighters, with an aptitude for analyzing their situations. Though one is much better at finding actual solutions than the other. The Greenette's homeroom teacher replied, before jumping back into what he was talking about before. Anyways, as Midoriya is free to use whatever alien he wishes, there of course remains the question of who. However, that is something I won't give my answer on. I'm not trying to spoil the fun after all. Midoriya narrowed his eyes at that, looking up to where the man would be. Since when did you care about spoiling fun? Oh well, any advantage I can get is a good one, I suppose. Well, alright. Either way, are you ready for the final match of the day, sports fans? The crowd cheered the loudest they had all day, as Midoriya began walking to the ring, trying to ignore how his body was sweating. His confidence was better than it once was, but still the idea of facing Bakugo would probably always make the Greenette nervous, especially in untested conditions. Still, he was here now and everyone was counting on him to win. So, that's all he had to do. That was all that went through his mind as he began to climb the steps up to stage. On the other side, Bakugo made his way with a dark scowl. Alright, sports fans. For the final time today. From Class 1A, he's the blonde with a temper as fiery and explosive as his own quirk. He's been a blast today, he's the hero course's one and only Katsuki Bakugo. Said teen just let out a humph at his intro, while still glaring down Midoriya. About time I put you in your place for the entire world to see. Oh, for fuck's sake. The Greenette rolled his eyes as he hovered his hand over his watch. Also from 1A, he's been giving US one hell of a show today, never showing US the same form twice yet. 'Cause when you got this kid in, it's hero time. It's Izuku Midoriya. The crowd exploded with applause and cheers, and Midoriya smirked, trying not to betray his worry as he stared Bakugo down. Think you can beat me genuinely this time, Kaken? 'Cause I think you're still going to need me to be like this to be able to actually do anything. He challenged, suppressing his urge to laugh when he saw his once friend's eyes lit up in anger. Good, and now he accepted the challenge, he just lost his best trick. Deku. You bastard. Begin. Boom. Just die. A green flash. Seriously, you need to expand your vocabulary. Boom. The blonde's eyes widened in surprise as he looked up at his new opponent. The transformed teen's body was sleek, with dark red rocks coating his bright yellow lava-like body. His hair was replaced by a billowing flame and his feet were like two claws more than actual feet. The thing that had surprised the explosion teen though, is that while the force had knocked him back ever so slightly, Midoriya had mostly been unfazed. Neat pyroform. He said, with a grin before punching the blonde back across the ring in his surprised state. Been thinking about renaming him, to be honest, not exactly my best name. So, Kaken, shall we? You bastard. Explosions set off behind the blonde teen as he propelled himself back, rocketing over the fire alien, dodging a punch and aiming to get behind him. Midoriya smirked, burning the cement beneath him and digging his feet into the ground. Boom. He'd be lying if he said the impact of the explosion didn't hurt and pushed his body, and he knew if he wasn't digging his feet and he'd be making many more evasive maneuvers that would get in the way of the fight. There was another factor to the explosions, however, a factor Midoriya had lamented much more for all his life. Yet another fist came at him, Bakugo deciding to try to brute force the alien from his spot. He grabbed both the explosive teen's arms, letting the explosions go off and letting out a small chuckle, confusing his opponent. The worst part about your episodes as a kid, Kakin. The worst part was always the burns. I still have the scars to today, you know. Good. They should be reminding you off your fucking place, you villain. The teen in his hand screamed and the fire aliens actually let his grasp go in confusion. Me, the villain? Look at yourself. Boom. So Eraserhead, want to give your account here? Pyroform. He possesses acute pyrokinesis, enhanced strength and durability, and well, you'll see as the fight goes on. Yar, well okay. Shorter account than normal, but that's cool, I guess. Midoriya gritted his teeth as an explosion hit him in the face, actually strong enough to get his foot to come out of the spot he had planted it in. Bakugo came flying towards him again and he decided he'd had enough being a stationary target. He threw flames beneath him, rocketing into the air out of the way of one of the blonde's attacks, turning down and seeing him approach. He waited until the blonde got close, firing off yet another explosion. A big one, using both hands. The greenette smirked, putting his one hand forward and absorbing the flames that came as part of it. Bakugo looked on shocked, as Midoriya then formed his own attack into a giant fireball. Kakin, catch! He shouted as he hit the blonde and knocked him into the ground, before slowly descending down. Now what the hell do you mean I'm a villain? Is that what your little opening speech was about? I will be the best hero. I am the best hero. Bakugo roared as he tore towards him, using his explosions to increase his speed. Midoriya crossed his arms in an X shape and threw out two, for lack of a better term, blades of fire that his opponent barely ducked under. You called me a villain, but you're the one always getting in my way. Always being where you fucking shouldn't. Boom. Boom boom. Midoriya didn't have time to stop the barrage as it hit him. He absorbed the flames, but the impact still knocked him off his feet and forced him back. Boom. He tumbled back, hitting his head against the concrete while Bakugo loomed over him. The blonde climbed on top of him and continued to let off smaller explosions, just enough to keep the teen pinned down. You're delusional. Midoriya coughed, meeting his once childhood friend's eyes. The greenette had gotten a lot of insight since he'd come to UA, including what true friends were. Which left him with a question. What did I ever see in you? Apparently, that was the wrong thing to say as he took a powerful explosion right to his head for it. Fucking shut up. To be the best hero, I have to squash everyone who stands in my way. The best never gets taken down or is looked down on by anyone, but you are always fucking there. Bakugo screamed, continuing to throw punch after punch. No matter how many times I beat you down, you wouldn't stay down. You always got back up and continued fucking looking down on me. Midoriya gritted his teeth, still taking the blows as he quietly began working on a counterattack in his hands. His patience was beginning to be tested though. Then you got that cheating fucking watch and now you think you're better than me? You don't deserve to have powers, you fuck, or did being diagnosed quirkless not teach you that? The fire continued to grow in his palms. His patience was comparable to a slab of wood. Still solid, as it took the abuse, but beginning to splinter. Got an entire damn class of weak-ass sympathizers. I am better than any one of them, but as long as you fucking exist, no one knows their place anymore. Hell, that fucking ponytail bitch must be insane if she has the hots for you. Bakugo, that's enough. Midnight called, both the teens having forgotten the teachers were there. Cementos began to move to stop the beating, but before he could, Bakugo made his last comment. He made his last mistake. Hell, bet that fucking ugly-ass little alien freak will probably be a loser like you if she keeps hanging out with you. The wood stopped splintering, because it exploded at millions of tiny pieces. The alien teen's mind went blank as autopilot took over his body. His hand shot out as his attack died, grabbing Bakugo by the throat. He grabbed tight as well, most likely cutting off the blonde's air supply. He didn't know what he was doing. All he knew is that as Bakugo's words seeped inside his head, he saw JJ in every situation he'd ever been in growing up. beaten, discarded, shouted at, forgotten, abused. And he reacted on instinct. Let go of me. Bakugo struggled to get out, kicking at him. The alien didn't comply, as the world almost seemed to slow around him. Reasoning gone with his rage, Midoriya uttered a phrase that surely would have turned everyone's blood cold had they understood what it meant. One for all. Plus ultra. He screamed, as an explosion of fire engulfed the arena. No one could see, people having to shield their eyes. What the hell was that? Present Mike shouted, and a bored, irritated sigh came from his co-commentator. It appears, Bakugo may finally have to understand there are consequences to his actions. Said teen coughed, his clothing barely clinging onto him in a ruined state as he looked up, face bloody and bruised. Cementos had tried to stop the fight but his cement walls just melted around Midoriya, doing nothing. Everyone could only look on in shock, as Midoriya's body had changed. Not by a massive amount, yet it was still notable. The bright yellow lava had turned a vibrant green, the rocks covering his body was fewer, exposing more of the fiery substance inside. And his hair, that had merely been a small billowing flame, now resembled a long and elegant mane. What the heck is this? You never mentioned a power like this. Present Mike exclaimed. I wasn't aware he had an ability like this. Somehow though, I don't think it's related solely to this transformation. Midoriya took a breath, turning to his opponent who stood up with an angry glare. He stalked forward slowly, feet melting the ground he walked on. Everyone in the stadium couldn't help but feel their breaths hitch, terrified by the sheer aura of rage that had enveloped Pyroform. Bakugo, after a brief second of hesitation, rushed at him. That was a bad idea. As the blonde closed in, Pyroform had lifted a hand and summoned a tornado of flames that carried the blonde up, before dropping him down. He looked over his opponent, who was still groggy from the explosion, and leaned in. Ever. Insult. JJ. Again. And I'll show you exactly how villainous I can be. Punctuating his threat with a ring of fire that surrounded them both, Midoriya waited. Eventually, Bakugo stood up, glaring. You. Fucking. I'm done trying to understand you, Kaken. If you really are that delusional, then I have more important things to do than try and deal with a hopeless case like you. If you want me to play villain to you, fine. He rushed forward and grabbed the blonde by his ruined shirt, lifting him overhead and throwing him across the ring, before his hands exploded and became coated in a thick layer of some kind of magma-like substance, in the shape of boxing gloves. I'll play villain. I might as well test my new powers anyways. He announced quietly, waiting for either his opponent to pick himself up or the match to be forcibly declared over. Bakugo's will, however, was admittedly harder to break than his body. The blonde seemed to realize as well what kind of situation he'd brought upon himself. Midoriya wasn't pulling punches anymore, he was fighting with the same intent Bakugo always brought into a fight. Intent to seriously damage and destroy his opponent. Bakugo's hands lit up in a glow as he steadies himself, pushing forward. He rocketed forward at speed, twirling in the air and getting close enough to place his hands on Midoriya as he let out a simple cry that caused the alien teen's eyes to go wide. Howitzer. Impact. In an instant, the entire arena exploded violently as Pyroform felt his whole body shake from the force. It was more violent than any move he had dealt with yet from the blonde, and he knew. If he was regular Pyroform, he would be absolutely destroyed, body torn apart and thrown against the walls. He smiled wide, however, as he reveled in the heat, pulling it in. The smoke cleared, and for the first time since the slime villain incident, Midoriya saw actual fear in the explosive teen's eyes. Midoriya had been knocked back but still remained in the ring, body barely phased. You call that an explosion? Midoriya! Midnight called in warning, as the greenette placed his hands forward. Pyrokinesis plus a power boost. Wonder what it does to my strongest move, let's compare. His hands glowed a brilliant green as fire poured off his body, all traveling to the fists. Special move, Supernova Blast. He got ready to unleash the full destructive power of his new form, when his eyes traveled past Bakugo and he saw a camera recording the event. A camera JJ would be watching through. He didn't unleash the attack as he remembered the brutal treatment Vilgax had delivered to him in a single day, and he thought back to his own past. He was doing exactly what Bakugo always did. But he wasn't Bakugo, he had the chance to be better. He lowered his hands. The blonde growled, and Midoriya dissipated most of the energy he absorbed to a much less destructive amount. "Be glad I'm not like you," was all he said, before turning and swiping his hand through the air, throwing out a crescent blade of fire into the ground that caused it to explode and throw Bakugo off stage. The explosive teen tried to use his power to save himself, but a fireball to the face stopped that quickly and he fell into the ground. Silence descended on the crowd as everyone sat surprised. No one knew what to think from the fight, but eventually after a few moments Mike managed to speak up. Well, sports fans, talk about your dramatic finales. It seems we have this year's winner, Izuku Midoriya. Not that surprising. Midoriya chose a form Bakugo's power would only make stronger. Smart plan, really. Another beat of silence as the teen transformed back and sat down, exhausted, but then cheers erupted in the crowd, while the greenette inspected his hand. "So that's what One for All doesn't normally, huh? Holy crap, that was." Words escaped him as he tried to think. He could barely describe this entire day as he looked around. After that fight, he could really just use a break or something nice happening at the least. "Midoriya!" a voice shouted, and he turned to see Momo waiting for him in one of the entranceways. Grinning, he ran down and over to her, getting pulled into a tight hug. "You were amazing." "Hey, I couldn't lose. Not while you and JJ and everyone were counting on me." He grinned, just enjoying the embrace. He didn't know what possessed him to ask the next question he did. Probably the adrenaline rush leaving him still confident and not able to think to realize how much he'd normally be embarrassed by asking this. "Hey Momo? Do you want to go out for something to eat after?" The girl froze, pulling back with an incredulous look, which morphed into a genuine hopeful smile. "Hey, are you asking me out on a date?" Honestly, he had no idea if he intended it like that. Seeing the smile though, it filled him with a new confidence and he decided to take his chances. "I guess I am, yeah." Long arms wrapped around him tight once more. "Then I'd love to." The two laughed as they made their way back into the arena area, as Midoriya would need to be there anyways for the medals. Most of his friends would join them soon, most likely. As the two walked back, Midoriya looked over to Bakugo, who was seething, sitting in the corner. It was an incredibly petty thought that came to him, but after that fight Midoriya didn't really care. Bakugo had been obsessed with winning everything for years. So he felt like he could afford just a tiny bit of gloating. "I win, Kaken." And he did. He won the festival, but more importantly to him, it seemed he's also won Momo's heart apparently. Now that was something worth fighting for.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.